There's a little melange of stories that come to mind. Is melange the right word? Maybe. And perhaps you'll remember that one about the man who came to his rabbi and he said, Rabbi, you have to help me, please, you have to help me, I'm going insane. I have a wife and 6 children and a mother and father and a mother-in-law and a father-in-law, and we're very poor, and I have this very, very small house, and it's so noisy, there's so much noise. Please, you have to help me. The rabbi looked at him and said, well, will you do whatever it is I tell you to do? The man said, I'll do anything, Rabbi, just tell me. Rabbi said, well, what animals do you have? And the man said, well, I've got a cow and 2 goats and a rooster and 6 chickens. So the rabbi said, well, you go home and you bring all the animals and birds into your house. So the very next day, the man was on the rabbi's doorstep, and you say, Rabbi, the cow is making pats all over our floor, and she's bumping into everything and knocking over all our crockery. Yes, said the rabbi. Go home and take the cow out of your house. And the very next day, he's back on the rabbi's doorstep. Rabbi, the goats are eating the floor and they're eating the curtains. And yes, said the rabbi, go home and take the goats out of your house. The next day he's back again. Oh, Rabbi, the rooster's up in the rafter and he crows all night. We're getting no sleep. Yes, said the rabbi, I understand. Go home and take the rooster out of your house. Well, he's back the next day. Now the chickens, they're scratching in our straw beds and they're laying their eggs. And oh, said the rabbi, I completely understand. Go home and take the chickens out of your house. Well, the next day, even just after the sun had come up, the man's on the rabbi's doorstep again, and he comes to the door in his pajamas. He said, what is it now? The man says, oh, Rabbi, I want to thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. My house is so peaceful. And then it came to the ears of the sultan of the day that Mulla Nasrudin had great powers. So he sent a contingent of soldiers to bring Mulla Nasrudin to his palace. And when he got there, the sultan said to the mullah, Mullah, I heard you've got powers. Show me your powers straight away, otherwise I'll sever your head from your shoulders. Well, the mullah looked up and around and he said to the sultan, oh, I see your mother and father sitting on thrones in heaven. Your mother is wearing a silken gown, your father is wearing a crown encrusted with gems. Oh, the sultan was very impressed. He said, oh, mullah, how do you get these wonderful powers? The mullah said, fear. Fear will do it all the time. And then there was a monk walking down the street, and he happened to pass one of those little stores that have those wonderful dumplings cooking. Well, you know, monks are always hungry, so as he was walking past, he goes, oh. And then a little boy comes running out of the shop, and he says, I saw you. My father said that smells are our business, and you are stealing our business. Oh, said the monk, oh. So he let out a very deep sigh. Oh. The little boy went back happily to his father's shop. Then the last story is a story about a young boy who took care of a herd of cows. And every night he would bring them into an enclosure and he would tie them so that they wouldn't wander. Well, one night he brought the cows back and he tied them up, and then he found that one cow had lost her rope. And there was no time to go into town to buy another rope to tie her up, and he was very afraid that she would wander off through the night. But fortuitously, just nearby there lived a very, very wise man. So the young boy hurried over to the wise man. He explained the situation, and the wise man said, "Oh, well, just go back and pretend to tie her up." So this is what he did, and the next morning when he went back, he let all the cows free, but she was still standing there, and she wouldn't come out and follow the other cows. So he went off to the wise man again, and the wise man said, "Oh, just go back and pretend to untie her." And so he did, and the cow went happily off following the others. What is the first thing that comes to your awareness, your mind, out of these four little anecdotal tales? Off the top of your head, what is it that comes up for you out of these stories?
That things are not what they are, but what people they are.
Yes, indeed, it's so, isn't it?
We're all mad.
Thank goodness for holding that. Give us advice. Or women.
So where does this place us in the scheme of things when we have this awareness? Well, first of all, what other thoughts are there that arise? What are thoughts?
And that's all right, an illusion.
Aha. Mm-hmm.
Don't let them trick you.
Yes, life.
You know,
That we're talking about, isn't it?
What comes
Life.
to
Uh-huh. So if we come to this place where we recognize the illusory nature of reality and perceptions, in fact everything, isn't it? Nothing is what it seems. Nothing. Where does this place us in the scheme of things relative to our own perceptions and our now solid awareness of this, the illusory nature, nothing being what it seems? So we can't trust even our thoughts or our perceptions of anything really, can we? Nothing. Where does that leave us then?
It leaves us as the hole in the flute through which the breath of God comes.
But then, like this question that was asked the other day, if we're not that pencil, or we're not that whole, because the breath, the movement, and if we can acknowledge that everything is not what it seems, then even movement is not what it seems. So we cannot even claim that as being a reality, even though we have our own breath in and out. So there's something beyond this. We can no longer consider ourselves that hole in the flute. if there's no movement. And to acknowledge that is to acknowledge that there's some power outside of ourselves that's playing on us. Leaves us up the creek without a paddle, doesn't it?
Then we have the flute and the hole and the one that blows the flute.
all right, yes, we can say so, but that doesn't help us with this dilemma that we have with what happens with our mind then if even our perceptions are not valid.
So how does the realisation of what's real unfold?
Well,
That's the only thing that's left.
yes. So we come to this saying, anything that changes is not real. So what is real? What is it about you that's real now? What is the only thing about you that's real now? Unchanging. Does not change. What is the one thing about you that does not change? That's been there and will continue to be there and is here now.
Awareness?
We can say so, yes. Awareness, yes. That gives us a validity, doesn't it? Can we grasp it as being real, though? Awareness? Claim it? This is what I am. This is what's been there. Is awareness there yesterday or tomorrow?
No, it's present.
Mm-hmm.
Just now.
Uh-huh. So these simple stories have brought us to a very important place, particularly after we've been through these changes that Easter brings along for us. It allows us to ask this very important question.
I think it's acceptance.
Acceptance may follow, but acceptance is something of the mind, isn't it? I'm accepting things the way they are. I'm accepting that things are not the way they seem, etc. But that doesn't give us the validity of what is real.
And it can't be emptiness because emptiness
No,
fills.
that's right. Emptiness is always full. You can't have emptiness without fullness, and fullness without emptiness.
But then who is there to validate? If we say, well, it's not emptiness and it's not fullness, and what's here and what's awareness? Well, how do we know what is solid awareness, and how do we validate anything?
Anything at all, absolutely. But we have to go back, step back a little bit, and we realize that one of our stepping stones along the way was to realize that there was something that was aware that it was aware. There was an awareness of our thoughts, or there goes my mind again, extrapolating from this and that and the other. And now we maybe recognize that as a witness of the events and the changing realities of life. But now we come down to this recognition that awareness is only present if there's a mind present, isn't it? And now we've invalidated the mind. It doesn't have any reality when it doesn't have a thought. And we know that as an absolute. So it's a simple question. What is it about you that is unchanging?
Well, it has to be like that God state, whatever the God state is.
Mm-hmm. Can you claim that?
I'd like to be such a person. I wouldn't know what exactly it is.
So it's a very important question, isn't it? It's a very important place in which we now find ourselves. But how different is it than living through this Easter story where we've been through 40 days in the wilderness, we've been crucified and in the tomb, and the stone rolls aside and we emerge and we don't know what we are and who we are. We don't know what's emerged from that. Something's gone, finished, dead, and here we are. What are we? So what's the difference between that and being able to recognize from that what it is that's occurred and where it is that we are, and even be able to see the path along which we're going? Then asking the question, what is it that's unchanging about us, that's been there and will continue to be there, which is embracing past, present and future anyway, beyond even the infinite.
Does the mind recognize this, or is it something beyond?
Certainly, that's its job.
The mind can recognize.
The mind can recognize it.
Could it be this sense of existence, Jaya, when she said, because when we are covered with all this noise of the mind, we are covered, but then when we drop and there's a silence, and
Yes.
there's this little...
Exactly, like the very first story, isn't it? We know there's no such thing as silence. The movement is still going, the air, we're breathing, there's always movement, so there's always sound. But we can recognize silence, as you have, isn't it? Silence.
Because even sometimes I think I haven't spoken for like a week. And
Yes.
I remember 2 days ago I've been, out. But there's a thread through there
Yes,
of silence.
silence. So translate this thread, and you have the answer to this question. Or as that Tao is saying, is there no trace that continues endlessly? What is this no trace? We cannot say we're no trace, or we're empty, or we're nothingness, because we still have this body, we still have these attributes, we still have those abilities and qualities. So what is it? So this is a supreme question that's being asked, that we need to answer. Because when we do, it will give the answer to what it is that's emerged when we come out of that tomb, when that stone was aside. Phew, I'm not out of a job yet. Thought I was going to be out of a job today.